What's up, guys? This is Universe Altering, and today I will be covering the first big crossover event from the New 52, Forever Evil. So this crossover was basically the event that was promised to us at the beginning of the New 52 in the Flashpoint story. A lot of people are probably familiar with Flashpoint. It's probably the Flash's most popular story. In that book, Barry Allen goes back in time to prevent his mother from being killed, but it alters the timeline in such dramatic ways that it's an incredible wasteland because it's a war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman. If you haven't read the comic, it's much more awesome than all of the live-action adaptations of the story. And in the moment where he's trying to reset the timeline, he sees a woman vaguely speaking and maybe holding something that is altering the universes as he tries to put it back together. And this was the event that was promised. So Flashpoint completely rebooted the DC universe, and it was meant to be a jumping off point for new readers, and it was actually where I began collecting comics when I was a kid. So this is where collecting comics and getting into all the storylines can become a little tedious, because to understand Forever Evil, you have to understand the first mini crossover between all of the books, which was Trinity War. In Trinity War, we finally see who the Flash heard while he was trying to put the timelines back together. Turns out it was Pandora from the myth, holding Pandora's box. So at this point, there were three Justice Leagues running around the DC universe: the main Justice League, Justice League Dark, and the Justice League of America. The JLA were assembled as a contingency plan for the primary Justice League, and the Justice League Dark deals with all of the mystical threats. So all of this came together when Pandora is searching for someone who can open the box without being corrupted. It is clear that not only does Pandora not fully understand the box, but neither do the three Justice Leagues. And because the box is capable of corrupting people, they end up fighting over it. It's revealed that the box is actually an extra-dimensional portal that allows evil versions of the Justice League members to transfer over to the primary Earth. Some of you might already be familiar with this evil Justice League, which in their world, they call themselves the Crime Syndicate. So I remember the comic book shop employee at the time when I was collecting this like 13 years ago was telling me that I'm gonna need the last two parts of Trinity War if I really wanted to understand Forever Evil. And that's because in the last two parts, two things specifically happen. One of the newest members of the Justice League, Atomica, is actually revealed to be a traitor. She implanted a tiny piece of kryptonite into Superman's brain that made him accidentally kill Dr. Light in the first part of Trinity War. She manipulated this whole thing so that they could eventually open the box and allow the evil Justice League, the Crime Syndicate, to come over. After Atomica reveals herself to be a traitor, she does something even more horrific. She activates a latent evil program that is hiding in Cyborg systems that calls itself the Grid. It removes itself from Cyborg's body in this grotesque fashion and becomes its own being. And the Trinity War ends with the Crime Syndicate loose on the primary Earth and ready to take over. So with that, we're ready to jump into Forever Evil #1, which just by the cover alone, you see the villains are taking the center spotlight. So, like most events, most of the good things happen in the first and the last issue, and this series wastes no time in getting straight to it. It's revealed that Grid has taken over all of the systems of the planet, and he has set the stage for the villains to take over. Nightwing, who's just swinging around on a mission, sees someone attack Arkham Asylum. So naturally, he jumps in. However, he's quickly beaten to a pulp and then taken prisoner. While the rest of the Crime Syndicate frees all of the villains from the prisons around the world, the evil version of Superman, called Ultraman, goes to find kryptonite, and Lex Luthor gets to see firsthand that his powers work opposite to that of the Superman of Prime Earth. Ultraman actually gets stronger by inhaling kryptonite, and he's actually weakened by the sun. The Crime Syndicate is wasting no time in taking over the planet, and they gather all of the villains to tell them personally that the Justice League is dead. Not only that, but they parade Nightwing in front of the crowd, and they reveal his identity as Richard Grayson to the entire world. Issue #1 comes to a close with Ultraman flying into the atmosphere and bursting through in order to move the moon in front of the sun and propel the world into darkness as his reign takes over. Due to some other events that I've read in the past, I kind of feel prepared to be like strung along and nothing really eventful is going to happen in the first issue. But as far as introductions go, this was a great start to the series. Of course, I hate to see one of my favorite characters in Nightwing be beaten and bruised and have his identity revealed to the world, but it shows that the Crime Syndicate is not playing around. So moving on to issue 2, we get more insight about the Crime Syndicate and what Lex Luthor plans to do about it. The most interesting character to me is Power Ring, who, unlike the Hal Jordan of the Primary Earth, who is powered by his willpower, this Green Lantern, or Power Ring as he's called, is powered by fear, and the ring that's attached to him is not cooperating with him in any way. It's actually a sentient being that is killing him as he uses it. Of course, the Crime Syndicate doesn't care that he's in pain and suffering because they can use his power. We also learn that Superwoman, who is in a relationship with Ultraman, has been deceiving him and is pregnant not with his child, but with the child of Owlman. And then we see that Johnny Quick and Atomica are probably the most sadistic of the entire group, and they just want to murder and cause chaos. As they go to kill some cops, the Teen Titans show up to stop them, but they're no match for Johnny Quick and Atomica, and Johnny Quick just does some temporal manipulation with the Kid Flash, and he causes a time portal to suck them into the future and just go away. This is one of those weird instances where collecting comics, like I said, can get confusing again, because imagine you were reading the main Teen Titans book at the time, which I heard was terrible. So imagine you're keeping up with all of these characters, and then randomly, seemingly, in the next Teen Titans book, they're just sucked into the future and you're like, yo, how did we get here? And even if it gives you a brief explanation in that issue, you're like, yo, I would have liked those events happening to these characters I'm reading to happen in the Teen Titans book. But back to this issue. As far as what Lex Luthor is going to do, we see that he's already prepared in some capacity by forming a clone of Superman, which isn't ready by the moment, but they're going to need to do something, and they're going to need to do something fast. So Luthor unearths his clone, and of course, the first thing he does is order it to kill his security guard, just to see if it will listen. In a very cute moment, we see that Bizarro doesn't really register the threat until the security guard points the gun at Luthor, which then his brain activates, and then he kills the guard. But this issue concludes with the reveal that Batman and Catwoman are still alive, and they have the remaining dying flesh of Victor Stone, who is Cyborg. They bring him to Silas Stone, Victor's father, in hopes that he can save Victor's life. But when asked about the rest of the Justice League, Batman simply says they didn't make it. Now, as you can imagine from knowing anything about superheroes, the Justice League isn't actually dead, and in issue 3, we get to see exactly what happens. Immediately after the Crime Syndicate arrives, the evil clone of Firestorm, who is Deathstorm, attacks Firestorm and activates his nuclear matrix. This causes Firestorm to inadvertently absorb all of the Leagues into his matrix. Following that, we cut to see that Ultraman is fighting Black Adam. Now, this was a little confusing for me because in preparation for this event, I read all of the Justice League issues of the New 52 that came out before this. In those issues, we see Billy Batson as Shazam accidentally kill Black Adam. So as far as I know, he's dead. It turns out that Black Adam was resurrected in an issue of Justice League of America, not even the main Justice League book. If you know anything about Black Adam from the movie that he had a couple years back, that character hates dictators and he will do whatever it takes to stand against them. So almost instantly after he's resurrected, he learns that the Crime Syndicate has assumed dictatorship over the planet, and Black Adam absolutely will not stand for that. So he finds Ultraman and he's going to beat his ass. Unfortunately for Adam, he underestimates Ultraman's strength, so Ultraman just grabs his jaw and breaks it, then throws him into the ocean like he's trash. The most interesting part of that battle though is that Ultraman isn't unharmed. He noticed he's bleeding, which means he's becoming a little weaker, and therefore he needs more kryptonite. Like I mentioned, the rest of the Crime Syndicate is busy assuming control of all of the cities and letting the villains loose. They order the villains to essentially reduce the city to a pulp, but the Rogues, a group of Flash villains, don't have any interest in doing that. The only thing that they were ever interested in was the big score, not killing and murdering a bunch of people. Once the Crime Syndicate learns that the Rogues are not interested in doing as they were ordered, they send Deathstorm and Power Ring to take care of them. If you know anything about the Rogues from the Flash TV series, you know that they usually carry physical weapons, but in the New 52, they have been genetically bonded with their weapons. So, Deathstorm notices this, And much like Firestorm, he can manipulate things on a molecular level. So he alters Captain Cold's DNA to remove his cold powers from his body. Once the Rogues conclude that this battle is not going in their favor at all, they try to escape through one of Mirror Master's mirror portals. However, Powerwing blasts the mirror as they're trying to travel through it, which sends each of the members to various locations. Captain Cold is actually transported to where Lex Luthor and his Superman clone Bizarro are. Luthor and Bizarro are standing at the coast as Black Manta drags Black Adam out of the water. Then in a brief conversation with Lex, they realize they're on the same side, and now we have this ragtag team of Captain Cold, Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, and Lex Luthor. So throughout these first 3 issues, I was just extremely engaged. We get to see what Lex Luthor is up to, and we get to see who are the villains that are actually going to decide to help. Because you might be a little deceived by that first cover, which basically has like the entire DC universe worth of villains teaming up against the Crime Syndicate. But then we see, no, a lot of these villains actually revel in the destruction, and it's only a handful of them that want change. It's obviously a massive crossover, so if you want to know what's going on with all of these villains and all of these characters, you would have to collect some of the other books from the time. If I'm remembering correctly, it was in that first month of Forever Evil launching that DC had Villains Month, which is where they had sub-issues of each of their main books, and in each of these issues, the villains would take the main line. So then this one, they would kind of give an origin story of what happened to these characters in this main timeline, or they would tell us where they fit into the evil spectrum that is now spread across the planet. It was in one of those sub-issues that Black Adam returned from the dead. I actually own some of the crossover books from the time in Forever Evil Rogues Rebellion, where we see the Rogues rebelling against the Crime Syndicate, and Forever Evil Arkham War, where we see Bane trying to enact control over all of Gotham. In the case of Rogues Rebellion particularly, I like that series because we get to see what the moral dilemmas of the Rogues Gallery is. We're not exactly heroes, but we're not down for whatever the Crime Syndicate is planning on doing with the planet. For the most part though, I do try to stick to the main Justice League book and of course this crossover event. So in the next video, I'll be covering issues 4 through 7 of this series. This has been Universe Altering. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see y'all in the next one.